Anyway, I think we should... Good evening. I'm Gregory Burke, Director of the Power Plant, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's International Lecture Series presentation by Paris-based artist Thomas Hirschhorn. We're very pleased to have Thomas here. And before I introduce him, I would like to just acknowledge the people who have made tonight's event possible. We'd like to acknowledge the Canada Council for the Arts, the Ontario Arts Council, and the Toronto Arts Council, our partners here at Harbourfront Centre, and also to acknowledge that our public programs are generously supported by the primary education sponsor CIBC Wood-Gundy and the 2010 International Lecture Series lead donor JP Bickle Foundation. And we'd also like to extend our deepest appreciation to Joël Savary and the Consulate General of France in Toronto, who have generously supported Thomas's visit to Toronto. And also before I go on, I'd just like to speak a little bit about the programs of the Power Plant and remind everyone that our current exhibitions with Ryan Drukarden, Sharon Lockhart, Peter Campus and Joachim Kirster close this coming weekend on Monday on Victoria Day. Watch out for our big fundraising party, Powerball. The tickets are almost sold out, so that's a bit of an urge for you if you haven't got tickets. That's on June 3rd. And also our opening party for our summer exhibition, Adaptation Between Species, is on Friday, June the 18th, and we'll be celebrating with a barbecue, as well as nice beer and drinks and everything else, and of course very good art. Now, Thomas Hirschhorn was born in Switzerland in 1957 and trained initially as a graphic designer. Since the 1980s, he has evolved a distinctive and radical sculpture and installation practice that makes monumental and excessive works with humble materials to engage viewers in the work of philosophy and global politics. He is one of the world's most celebrated artists and has received the Marcel Duchamp Prize in 2001 and the Joseph Beuys Prize in 2004. At the 2002 Documenta, Hirschhorn constructed the Bataille Monument as a social housing complex in the suburbs of Kassel. In 2007, the Musée d'Art Contemporain de Montréal exhibited their recent acquisition of Hirschhorn's massive jumbo spoons and big cake, which references 12 failed 20th century utopias. And at the 55th Carnegie International, which some of you may have seen in 2008, he presented Caveman Man, an immersive installation of caves made of wood, cardboard, tape, aluminium foil, books, and posters. Tonight, Hirschhorn will speak about his ambitious 2009 project, the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, a sprawling collaborative public sculpture and festival inspired by Baruch Spinoza that took place in the Bijlmer neighborhood of Amsterdam. And before I ask Thomas to come to the podium, I just want to make mention that after the talk, Thomas will take questions from the audience, but please wait for the microphone before asking your question. So without further ado, please welcome Thomas Hirschhorn.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Greg, for your introduction and for your warm welcome in Toronto. So I choose to speak about the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival. It's my last project in public space. It's a large project. I chose it because I thought not a lot of people in the audience maybe saw or know about it. And it gives me the occasion to discuss some issues of my work. So I was invited by Straat van Sculpturen, which is a foundation, a Dutch foundation, a private and public foundation, to do a project in a group exhibition in the Bijlmer in Amsterdam Southeast. That's why I went to Amsterdam. Amsterdam Southeast, the Bijlmer, is a public housing project from the mid-60s. It was finished in 68. It is a very large project, built on an old polder. It's inspired by the urbanistic idea of Le Corbusier. That means a lot of green, a lot of water, no cars, large apartments with double exposures, and originally an inner street. It was conceived as public housing for a very mixed population. But 7 years after finishing the construction, in 1975, the year of the independence of Suriname, a former colony of Holland, made it that a lot of Surinamese people went to the Bijlmer neighborhood, and now almost everybody there is, or 95% are from Suriname. This project I based on presence and production. There are my guidelines. And when I say my guidelines, so presence and production means to be present myself all the time and to produce myself also all the time. I try as an artist to define my own terms, presence, this one, presence and production, because I don't want that the work is classified as community art or as public relational art or public or relational aesthetic art or whatever. So that's why I call this presence and production art project. So together with 12 inhabitants which were paid for their work, I built the structure of the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival. Why to work with inhabitants? Why to work? Because they're there, they're living there, and because my work does not need some specific knowledge or some specific tools to do. Everybody can do my work together with me, of course. So that's why I asked the inhabitants to work with me, and also to work with inhabitants gives the advantage to that they share something with me from where they are coming, their culture, their way to see things, to see art, to see my work, or to see the life. And also to work with neighbors that I didn't know before is fun. The structure of the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival was a platform, and on the platform a house to host the activities, and on the top roof enlarged book, the book Ethics of Spinoza. This is the structure we built together with the 12 inhabitants. The Bijlmer Spinoza Festival is called the Bijlmer because it's in this neighborhood, because the Bijlmer, but also because it was made together with the inhabitants of the Bijlmer. It's called Spinoza because I love Spinoza's philosophy. I love especially his book Ethics, and I wanted to do a commitment and a kind of landmark to this philosopher who was born in Amsterdam. The Bijlmer Spinoza Festival is called Festival, not because it's a festival, but because it's a time-limited art project who could be also in another location, in another city, in another neighborhood, or in another country. When I do work in public space, the cornerstone is help. It's not that me, the artist, thinks I can help the people, or I bring help, or I know how to help. the cornerstone is to ask for help. This is really very important. Me, the artist, needs the help of the people, of the population, of the inhabitants to do my work. So this is very important to not forget. Me, the artist, needs the help, not me, the artist, brings the help. The key figure for me in this project was Sammy Monsels. Sammy Monsels is a former sprint champion from Suriname who, together with youngsters every day in this neighborhood, do train athletics, sprint and athletics. I made 9 trips over 1.5 years in order to encounter people and in order to meet inhabitants, because I did not know, of course, the neighborhood. So, and then on one of these trips, I met Sammy Monsels, who I found very interesting, because he had a vision not only concentrated on sport, his love and his activity, but he has a vision that wanted to go behind sports, and I liked it a lot. And he invited me then to present my project to the youngsters which he was training, and to his friends, and also to his family. He organized for me a meeting that in order that I could present my project. So this is the reason why this project, the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, took place actually there where it is, close to the athletic track. Because once during my visits, Sammy told me, "Why, Thomas, you don't do it with me here right on the athletic track?" So the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival was a very dense, a complex, even a hyper-complex artwork with what I call 16 beams. I call them beams, or activities, or offers, or outputs, but I call them beams. And it was structured in 4 phases. The phase of preparation was 1.5 years. I had to come always for 3-4 days. I made it 9 times in order to encounter people and to fix the specific spot. Then the phase of set up, 1 month, together with the 12 inhabitants. Then the phase of the exhibition, 2 months. And then the dismantling. So since the beginning, I always told to everybody that all phases, even when they are different in the length, they're important to me, and they have the same importance to me. So now I want to quickly tell you more about the beams, the output or the input, as you want. So there was a Spinoza library. I wanted to offer books about Spinoza and to read and to inform the people about the work of Spinoza, and also the critique who his work achieved. So, and for 10 days also, we had an original copy of the Tractatus Theologicus Politicus from the Riedman Library, was written in 1670, exhibited. Then there was an exhibition, Spinoza exhibition. I wanted to offer also the possibility to learn or to be confronted with the work, with the life of Spinoza, with some points of interest of the life of Spinoza. So Theo van der Werf, who is the secretary of the Spinoza, who is in Rheinsberg. He, together with him, I made 4 small films who I showed in this Spinoza exhibition. Then I constructed an internet corner with 5 computers for access, for free access. I made, of course, a website, the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival website, with all 16 beams, with also a webcam, and with all the material we produced on the spot to download. I conceived the Bijlmer Documentation Center. It is a small exhibition about the neighborhood, about the inhabitant of this neighborhood, and also about the idea of the architect for the Bijlmer neighborhood, and also about facts from the past. The only fact from the past I did know was there was a tragedy. There was an airplane crash in 1992 where a jumbo did fall into the Bijlmer neighborhood. So this part, who was quite traumatizing for people, was also a part of the exhibition, together with Henk van de Belt, who is an inhabitant, who lives there since 37 years, and who is a kind of, he called himself, believer of the idea of the Bijlmer neighborhood. Together with him, we built the documentation center. So there was a car, a Spinoza car. It's the only work I made in my studio, and I brought in with me and exhibited it. It is a car from a Spinoza fan. We construct a workbench with tools and materials for free use to do something, to construct something. There was a bar in order to encounter the neighbors, in order to have a discussion and to meet. The bar is an important part, not because we need to eat or to drink, but more as a point to be involved in the project, not only by thinking. The bar was run by 4 inhabitants autonomously. They did take care about. The only agreement was the bar should be open all the days and all the time of the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, of course. That means every day from 9 in the morning, from 10 in the morning to 9 in the evening. Presence is one of my guideline word. It's so important because I believe only when I'm present myself, I can have encounters. I can share something. So that's why I believe in this guideline of presence. And you know, sometimes people say, yes, but it's long, 2 months. In fact, it was 3 months with the building of this. But the presence of me, the artist there, is also a kind of statement and an engagement then to say there is not something else happened more important for me than this. So this is why I was all the time there. I shared with other people one apartment in the neighborhood. So I shared it, for example, with Markus Steinweg, a friend, a good friend, a philosopher from Berlin. Markus Steinweg was also all the time on the spot, and every day he made a new philosophical lecture. Markus Steinweg does philosophy with free speech. He just made a small abstract, and he did it outside when the sun did shine, and inside when it was raining, which was often the case in Amsterdam. Markus Steinweg, I made different. He's a really how can I say, a young but really blessed philosopher. So with him, I made different projects. So one of these is the map of friendship between art and philosophy. Together, we tried to make a form who wants to say that art is not an illustration of philosophy, and philosophy is not a justification of art. That's why we made this map, and in the middle of the map there is the handshaking. The handshake, but a real handshaking, not like this, because you need one more person to really make a handshake. And because we are two, we make something one, a handshake. And this is, in a way, the logo of this idea of the map of friendship between art and philosophy. And because in this handshaking there are 10 fingers together, we decided 10 terms who are not 5 terms for art and 5 terms for philosophy, but these 10 terms are equal in very essential point terms for art and for philosophy, like hope, courage, universality, resistance, form, assertion, love, autonomy, heedlessness, and war. So these are the terms Marcus and me shares completely together. These terms are valuable for art, but also for philosophy. I invited a French curator, Guillaume Desanges, to present his project Child's Play. Child's Play is a play for performing art, and the aim is to let kids replay figures or moments in performing art, like here, Lydia Clark, Gina Pane, or Joseph Beuys, or Marina Abramovic. So, because Guillaume couldn't do it himself all the time, I found an inhabitant, Muriel Monsens, and she ran the Child's Play all days, and in total 64 kids, always 8 in a week, did rehearsal, and on Saturday play this Child's Play. So together with Marcus, we were not alone. I invited also Alexander Costanzo, who is a French philosopher, and he's an editor of a French philosophical review, Feuille, together with his brother. I invited him to do the newspaper, the Bijlmer Spinoza newspaper. The Bijlmer Spinoza newspaper was photocopied on the spot, and every day between 30 or 80 newspaper were spread out. The content of the newspaper was either philosophy or something about the neighborhood, or somebody invited of the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, or another production of the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival. And I invited Vittoria Martini. She is an art historian who made now actually her PhD in Venice, and Vittoria was the ambassador. Vittoria was the ambassador, but not of the artwork, of my artwork, of the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, but she was the ambassador of the art history. I wanted that people who had questions to art, not to my work, but to art in general, could come and ask. The mission of Vittorio was to inform the people or to respond to their question. Also, Vittoria made the documentation, photo and video, and she engaged a dialogue with other art historians in order to discuss this complicated situation, to be an art historian integrated, even embedded in an artwork who is trying to exist. And myself, I produced a theater, the Spinoza Theater. The Spinoza Theater was written specially by Markus Steinweg for this artwork, and together with 9 inhabitants, we played it every day except one day in the week. The aim was to give a voice to, not to Spinoza, but to the philosophy and the life and the contradictions who arised against his philosophy in this time, to give a voice to this. This was the aim of the Spinoza Theater. And the actors, again, were not, of course, professionals, were inhabitants of the neighborhood, which were paid also to do this. And it was the idea was not to get actress or to get actor, but the idea was to introduce another dimension of Spinoza into the festival. The word production, my guideline work, production, it's very important to me because I believe, first of all, I believe in production. I believe in it. I think its production is a tool to create equality. I believe in production also because only when I'm producing something, I am in troubles and I can share my troubles. And this was a lot the case in this work. And also I believe in production because only when I'm producing something, I can, I think, create an event. So I produced also lectures, philosophical lectures about Spinoza and about the philosophy of Spinoza. Also, I did it for myself, not only for myself, in order to have the pleasure to invite people to share their ideas of the philosophy of Spinoza with us, like Tony Negri, Bogdan Gu, or also I invited art historians to come to in relation to Spinoza to explain a part of their work. Mignon Nixon, Georges Didier Huberman, or Sebastian Egenhofer. Him, for example, he made a lecture about about Hercules Segers, who was a contemporary artist of Spinoza, and he tried to make links between the philosophy and the work of Hercules Segers. And Mirjam van Rijn, who is a Dutch philosopher, who came twice. Scott or I don't know, Jeff, can you help me? Thank you very much. So Miriam van Rijn came twice. So another guideline to me is to work for what I call a non-exclusive audience. And I made a small schema in order to explain a little bit better what I mean when I say non-exclusive audience. So it's important, I believe, that the artist, I mean me in occurrence, but the artist direct his work to the non-exclusive audience, to the other. You see it here on to direct it clearly to the people he don't know, the stranger, perhaps the people he is afraid of, perhaps the people who are not interested in art. It's really very important. It's important for, I think, two reasons. First, because only what I call the other or the non-exclusive audience, they really judge my work. They judge it sometimes very hard, and this I have to accept, and it's cruel, but I think it's the only way to have a contact, to direct it to the non-exclusive audience. Because the danger is, and this you see on the left side, that when the artist is directing his work to what I call the spectre of evaluation. The spectre of evaluation includes the institution director, the art critic, the curator, the gallerist, the art historian, the collector, the art professor, etc. Why it is dangerous? Because they are evaluating the work of the artist. They're not judging it, they're only evaluating it. Together, they are evaluating it. But I have nothing, of course, against these people, because they love art, of course. And that's also, you see, they are also integrated in the other or the non-exclusive audience. And they are touching there and they're overlapping there. They're not excluded. But the only thing I really believe is important is the dynamic of the work towards the other and not towards the spectre of evaluation. That really I try to do. That really is something I am committed to. So beside the events I organized in advance, I organized also 20 what I call running events. A running event was an event I didn't announce, and I couldn't because I did not know. Running events are events I proposed to do together with the neighbors and on the initiative of the neighbors, like Anton de Kom debate. Anton de Kom is a Suriname freedom fighter, and there is a sculpture in the neighborhood who is quite criticized by the Suriname population, and I organized a debate. I organized also a concert of a French philosopher and a poet, Christophe Fiat, because I learned that he made a song to Spinoza. I organized a poetry reading of one of the inhabitants, a P.I. man, who made beautiful poets in Dutch, but also in English, and of course in Surinamese. Then I organized a running event for an inhabitant who was an artist. I invited my friend Manuel Joseph from Paris to make a lecture, and he chose to make 5 uncrescent readings. Uncrescent reading is a reading who has the duration of 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, and 1 hour. I invited Sherida de Ziel. She is an inhabitant, and she made 2 lectures about Trefossa. Trefossa is a Suriname patriot and also a poet. He, for example, he made the national song of Suriname. So she is his niece, and she came twice and made a lecture about Henry de Ziel, Trefossa. I invited another artist of the neighborhood who was also actually an actor, Hans van Beusekom, who made a lecture about his artwork. Other neighbors wanted to make a mug workshop and a T-shirt workshop. I invited Duncan Pickstock, who is an artist from London, a cineast and videoist, and he presented his film Believers. I tried to make a connection with his film Believers, who speaks about the believers in the London city and the believer of the neighborhood. And Sammy Mansels several times organized a small Dichter concourse, for competition for kids and for adults. A passerby poet, Merrick van der Toren, read his poetry, and another neighbor proposed to make a barbecue. We named Spinoza barbecue. So another guideline, or more, a very important word to me is precariousness. Of course, this project was precarious in its form and its issues. Precariousness is, since a long time, a very important word to me. It's a positive word to me, or it's for sure not a negative one. Because the term precarious is a political one. Precarious is something who needs that I am awake. I cannot sleep, because when I'm sleeping, I cannot get the precarious moments, perhaps the beautiful moments, the rare and very rare and very short, beautiful moments of encounter. So that's why precariousness is positive to me. Ephemeral is not precarious. The logic of ephemeral is biological. The logic of ephemeral is dead. But precarious, the logic of precarious is survive, is life. It's very important to me to understand it. And together with Manuel Joseph and other friends, we discuss a lot about the term of precariousness. And Manuel Joseph just developed recently a fantastic idea that the danger is not that the people of the city, the citizens, will be in danger by the precarious people because they want to get citizen. The contrary could be the case, is that the citizen understand that they had to go to the camp of the precarious, because precarious means being in movement, being active, having idea to survive, and giving yourself the possibility to not be conservative and just to defend what you think you must defend. That's why precariousness is a very interesting term also today, I think. So I made some very nice experience in the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival. One of the experience was that there was a mixture with the time between who was the spectator and who was the actor. So there was a mixture between who was active and who was passive. And there was no more, with the time, there was no more gap between the stage and between the public space. Another experience I made was the experience of the audience, because sometimes there were a lot of people. Sometimes there were some people. Sometimes there were a few people. And of course, sometimes there were nobody there. It's really very important that to stand this out as an experience, because it was not a cultural project, it was an art project. And it's very important to have this in mind, and also to me to encourage myself as the artist, what I am doing. So it's not because there are no people there, it's not working. It's not because there are nobody there, it's a failure. Or it's not meaning because there are a lot of people there, it's a success. It's very important. And I experienced it very strongly with this project. Because I know as an artist that in art, something who doesn't work, who does not function, can be art. So to me, the experience of success and failure, or no success and no failure, was a very important one with this work again. The experience means to do an experience, because the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival was an experience, means, yes, to do something without rules, to do something without certainty, to do something without result, in a way. And to do it with the will and with the understanding that you are really trying to do an experience, something new means it, to make an experience. So one of the experiences also I made, and I was witness of this, is of what I call the phenomenon of the second or the third row. So it was that people came and put their chairs quite in a certain distance to the stage or to the festival here. And in the beginning, I was a little bit surprised by this reaction that I couldn't really understand. But then, with time, I thought perhaps this is the sign that there was an impact. Because when there is an impact, there are waves or rows. There are a second row or a third row or a second wave or a third wave. So as I told you, after 2 months, together with the same people we constructed, we did dismantle at the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival. It was a very quick action. In only 3.5 days, all material went back in a way to the neighborhood for being reused or thrown away. And the last day, I organized a lottery or a tombola, a free tombola for everybody. And the people had just to sign in themselves, because I wanted that everybody could win something. That's why we needed to know how many gifts or things we had. And in this tombola with more than 300 people, all software or all material with more than a material value was spread out in the Bijlmer neighborhood. So this project, beside all questions who arise to me as an artist, and I'm not sure did I found respond now to them, did confirm to me that art has the power to transform, and also that art is something universal who I can share. So this is why this project reinforced my faith in art, but also on the other side, I get faith again from art. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. So we are going to take some questions from the audience, and maybe we'll actually do it one side first and then the other side, because there's no middle aisle. So if anyone wants to put their hand up with a question. Helena Rackett.
Well, I was just wondering what it is about Spinoza that particularly appeals to you, and why for this neighborhood?
Yeah, the neighborhood first. What I told you, it's just because it's in Amsterdam. He was born there. There was a small link. Spinoza, because he's a philosopher with what I believe an universal impact can have all over the world, an impact. So why not at the Bijlmer?
You see, I'm not very familiar with Spinoza. So what is the essence of Spinoza that you were hoping that your participants would, get?
So, just let me say something more, because I was not finished with the neighborhood. So in the beginning, for example, I asked the people of the neighborhood, do you know, everybody I asked, do you know Spinoza? And everybody, I think really almost everybody knew him. Because in Amsterdam or in Holland, Spinoza is a very well known. For example, there is the Spinoza Lyceum, where kids has to go. There is a lot of, the names, there are the monuments of Spinoza. There are also pizzeria called Spinoza, etc. So he's quite, the name is known, but of course not the philosophy. So why Spinoza? For me, only for me, of course, because the Spinoza-Festival, like also the other works I made dedicated to a philosopher, has of course the aim to give the possibility to engage with the philosophy of Spinoza or also of the others. But it is not necessary, of course, because I'm not a missionary, even when I have a mission. So this is important. So I have to give the possibility to go into the work. But that means also that I need for myself a reason to defend, in a way, Spinoza. To defend, to explain, because I explained to people why Spinoza. For example, people ask me, but why you didn't make a monument for example, Trefossa, the Suriname, or Anton de Kom, the Suriname philosophers or poets. But I did not know them. So I can only do something I know, and also I can only do something I love. So when I say I love Spinoza, so it's very important, because I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a historian, I'm not a scientific. But what I understood of the philosophy of Spinoza is his form, because I'm an artist. His completely logic, the form of his definitions, the form of how he tries to take words, terms, and to work it out that everybody can be touched. For example, the term of proudness, being proud, and the term of, I don't know the name in English, Hochmut. Hochmut, I don't know the term in English. So the difference, orgueil en français, orgueil, the proud and the different, how Spinoza explained to me, sorry, what is the name? No, it's Hochmut. It's very important. It's not, yes, it's not I'm proud of something. It's more, it's different. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not a traducer. But I know there is a big difference. And he explained in his book, Ethics, to me, the big difference between being proud of something and being orgueilleuse, hochmütig. Yes? Read it. So, you know, this is why I love him. This is why me, the artist Thomas Hirschhorn, loves him and say, I want to dedicate to him a work because he explained to me this difference so clearly in something who make the switch between something who is a joy and something who is sad. Yes? So, you know, I have not a big knowledge about philosophy, and I'm not reading all the day philosophy, you know, because I have to do my artwork. But there are some elements who touched me so strongly that I think I will dedicate to him this artwork. That's why Spinoza, because I can explain, except the name in English, Hochmut, I can explain why it touched me so strongly.
Great. Are there any other questions around that? Just one moment. Wait.
Hi, I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about how your approach, or if your approach to these kinds of public works has changed in the past 7 years, say, since the Bataille Monument, which is maybe one that some people here might know about, to the more recent work you've done in Amsterdam.
Yeah, it changed because the Bataille Monument was the first based on presence and production. But there was my presence, but there was not a lot of production, in fact, at the Bataille Monument. So I wanted to accelerate the production. That's why at the Spinoza-Festival it was hyper complex. It was even too much production, you know. So this was how I tried to develop it, to put more production inside. In the Bataille Monument there was only, in fact, my presence. It was, and I mean, I can say I produced the whole thing, but so the development goes in more and more of production. Like I made it the Musée Précaire Albinet in 2004, or as I tried to make also in the Swiss democracy project, which was not in a public space, but which was in an institution, but was also based on presence and production. So the development is, I try to make it very hyper complex, too complex, that I am really in trouble to do it, and I was in trouble. So that I really need kind of coexistence with somebody else, with some other, in order to do my project. And this is, you know, to work in a kind of, to accelerate the process. Yes, that's how is the development going. But of course, this is also a very demanding project. It's a very expensive project. It's a very time and energy needing project. Not all, but not all of my projects are now presence and production projects. I also continue to do other projects without my presence and without my production.
Yes, you spoke in your lecture about how for you it's very important that your target is the non-exclusive audience, and you define that in terms of the other. Now, in Spinoza's own life, he encountered himself as other in two ways. One, in being Jewish and being the Jew as other in the Christian society, and two, in terms of being othered from Judaism itself because of his own excommunication, because of his radical beliefs in regards to religion. So my question is, to what extent did these aspects play a part in the Spinoza Festival, and also in relationship to these inhabitants in terms of their racial qualities and origins, and being othered from the larger society? So to what extent did these kinds of issues come into play in the events and in the activities, or in your conceptualization overall, overarching conceptualization of the festival?
Yeah. Thank you for your comment. You get it. I mean, you know.
But why don't you want to be more explicit about that in your talk?
Until 1863 or 68, Suriname, the abolition of slavery. The Suriname people was the slaves of the Dutch people, yes. So of course, and now they are living in the Bijlmer neighborhood, or their grandkids, or their etc. So yeah, you know, you pointed out it was, and as I told you, this is what art can do: make the links. But not, and I'm sorry to disappoint you, in this explicit way, you know, in this kind of, I think, academical way. No, in a way that it keeps its openness to get to think to this or not. And this is how it was about. So there is no result to have from me, or from. I cannot give you the answer. You make the link, and it's beautiful, and I think it exists. But I cannot tell more than I believe that the artwork is able to make it.
But again, to be more specific, were there specific lectures or events that talked about these aspects of Spinoza's own ethnic and religious identity and being othered?
No.
No, it didn't come up.
You know, look. Tony Negri, he made a fantastic lecture because he really loves and he knows Spinoza, you know. But do you think I ask him to come and to make a lecture about something specific? No. The people do what they want to do when I really don't share the responsibility with them. You know, they do what they want. I'm completely happy with everything somebody does from himself towards Spinoza. This was the only question I asked, but not, and that's why I asked these people, but not after to do specifically about the issue towards this neighborhood. And you know what happened is that Sherida Adama Detzil made her lecture about his uncle who did suffer of the history of slavery of his country. You know, the connection, I'm not there to make the connection directly. I am there to create the conditions that a connection is possible, but not in directing it, because we are not in a school, we are not in a university, we are on a field, we are in the savannah, you know, we are really outside, we are doing field work, and you have, and this is why the work also precarious is so important to me. You have to be open to be touched by the grace of the moment where you get the link, you get the point, because you are there. And of course, it was very difficult to get the point for people, they just came 10 minutes, or perhaps only for one lecture. That's okay. But the project was a presence and production project who runs 2 months.
Next question.
You said you are interested in the non-other, not in the sphere of evaluation, but there was an intersection there between the sphere of evaluation and the non-other. Is that the intersection was more important for you, or was just a casual thing that the other can be also an evaluator? And if he does interested you, how did you manifest your interest?
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but I didn't understand the first 2 words, the difference between what?
You put a drawing, right, with the non-other and the sphere of evaluation, right? And you said your aim was towards the non-other.
Non-exclusive audience.
Non-exclusive,
okay.
right?
Yes.
And there was an intersection between the circle of non-exclusive
yes.
and the sphere of evaluation. So you were interested in that intersection?
Of course.
And how did you manifest your interest? I mean, how do you really record that someone was interested
No, I have not to record, but you're right. I mean, important is to make this overlapping part, because I don't want to say I want to work for the non-exclusive audience and then exclude somebody. That's why it's non-exclusive. So it's excluding nobody. It's very important to me. So that's why the overlapping is there, because the art historian, they are coming also, or the art critic, or the art lover, or the collector, they are coming also. And they are of course welcome. I'm not working against them, but this is my idea, clearly work towards another audience. You know, you must know it. 2 weeks ago, I wrote in a very fancy newspaper, not a newspaper, a magazine, about an art event. And the first 2 sentences was, we found us, I mean, in this word, we found us together with a very select audience, you know. This was, and then a long explication about this fantastic artwork. But you know, it starts with the selected, the very selected, tiré sur le volet. The audience of tiré sur le volet. You know, I must develop myself when I don't accept this, when I think, is this how it has to work? This tiré sur le volet, sorry for my French, tiré sur le volet audience. So I want to invent, and I made it before, another direction, another dynamic. And that's what I call the non-exclusive audience. This is a tool or a weapon for me to direct my work to a public and to be clear that I never want that there is this kind of very exclusive, only very exclusive public. Because it happened a lot with art. It happened a lot with art. So I try to do this, to define my terms. That's why it's so important to me. But everybody, of course, can make a path and is invited. Because really I don't want to exclude anybody.
Next question.
Yeah, you mentioned that that it was only in production that you experienced troubles, and in this particular production, you experienced a lot of troubles, and I'm just wondering what kind of troubles did you experience, or what kind of troubles do you experience in this kind of a presentation, and how do you deal with that?
I didn't say that I expected troubles, but but when you do an artwork in public space, there are normally difficult. You know, they are difficult. So you have to face them. This is the beauty, but also the hardcore of the work in public space. So I can only say the most difficult thing in this specific project. It was very different than, for example, the Musée Precariousness or the Bataille Monument or the Deleuze Monument or Swiss democracy project. Was a kind of non-interest, a kind of non-implication. So this was the big trouble to me. But for example, nothing was stolen, nothing was attacked physically. Nothing was thrown down, absolutely nothing, which happened a lot, even on one of my last projects. So, you know, this was the big, when you want trouble, to really try to make a breakthrough in this kind of, I don't know, specific non-interest or later even sometimes lethargic way to live. So this was my big problem, or my big issue in this specific project.
Next question.
Yes, I know you've addressed the issue of the Bijlmer as a site, but I'm still not clear, and maybe it's just me, but what I wonder is whether it really matters. The Bijlmer is fraught with meaning within the Netherlands as a site. And is this a project that, did it have to happen in the Bijlmer, or could it just as easily have taken place in Vondel Park, for instance? Is there any meaning attached to the Bijlmer, which in the Netherlands is well, it's where all their colonial pigeons have come home to roost, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I made it there. Now it's attached. You know, I made it there. Could it have been anywhere? No, but no. You know, the thing is, we don't speak about hypotheses. We speak, or I speak, about work done. Yeah, and that's also why I wanted that it's called the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, like le Musée Precariousness from the street, Albine, for example. I'm interested in to fix it, you know, to fix it. But the fixation is my fixation, but is a fixation who people can do when they want. They're invited to do it when they want. And this is actually an important part also from, for example, the specific choose of the spot. Because there are, in the beginning, there are also always the possibilities. There are a lot of possibilities because, for example, the neighborhood is very large. There are a lot of possibilities to do it there, etc. But then, at one point, and that's why it's not a hypothesis, it's a decision, you know, who you have to pay for it, you know, the man or the woman who take this decision. So, because I decided it's there, and it comes, believe me, yes, something truth, you know, and truth, I mean, because it doesn't need to be explicated, it doesn't need to be argumented, it doesn't need to even to be documented. It was there. It was a work. It's very important. It's not only an essay or a hypothesis or a theory. It's a work made.
And next question.
I wanted to ask about just a detail in particular, when you were talking about the theatre, the Spinoza theatre, there was on the stage there was a number of running machines, and of course I thought that was somewhat absurd because we're in the middle of a running track, but I was wondering what you had the people on the stage and what they were actually doing, and I also was thinking about the project you did at the Gladstone Gallery Universal Gym last year, and I wondered if there was what the connections were.
Yeah, the gym, it was an accessory. It was an accessory, the gym instrument. The gym instrument has, of course, it's very important to me as a form for occupation, a continuous occupation, who seems to be necessary and who seems to make something working. So to me, it's a form who actually has to do also with understanding or a non-understanding of the world, because these kind of machines to me are elements to how can I say this? There are tools, or not tools, but there are elements that they prolongate physically what you have in the mind. And I mean, that's why I use them at this exhibition you would speak about, Universal Gym, but also I use them in the Spinoza Festival, in the theater. The idea was it's in a gym. It's in a gym, so people come together to do something for themselves, in a way, very egoistic, yes, but they exchange something else together. And there is a fight, perhaps, between this egoistic occupation and perhaps the thinking who is could be shared with the other. That was the main idea. And in the Universal Gym, I tried with these prolongations of the machines to work them out as kind of machine who doesn't work, in fact, but who has a kind of other existence.
Are there any more questions? Oh, down in the front.
Hi, the last question, I think. Est-ce que je peux la poser en français? Est-ce que ça vous va? Je serais un peu plus à l'aise. Donc, oui, ça va. Donc, ma question, c'est que je voulais d'abord vous parler un peu de mon expérience moi-même avec une communauté. Pendant 8 mois, j'étais en charge d'un laboratoire communautaire d'art où je devais interagir avec la communauté, une très petite communauté où l'intérêt pour l'art était à peu près absent. Et quand je faisais des activités, ça arrivait par moments, en effet, qu'il n'y avait personne qui venait assister aux événements, aux conférences et tout. Et puis, je devais sans cesse comme me remotiver, retrouver la foi pour organiser d'autres événements. Donc, la question que j'ai, est-ce que vous avez encore la foi en peut-être la possibilité de l'art de changer les choses, de changer une communauté? Ou c'est peut-être une question très personnelle, mais je vous laisse libre de répondre.
Yeah, of course, I think art can change the world. You know, why working when you don't believe it? I mean, why you want to give you this pain when you don't believe in this? You know, you have not to work then when you don't believe this. And I don't, you know, I know then sometimes people say he's naive or so, but I don't think I'm naive. But I put what you call foi or faith overall in art, faith in art. Like me, myself, I was touched by art. You know, why I'm an artist? Because I was touched by. I'm not born as an artist. I didn't learn to be an artist. I was touched by art, and I understood that this has, because you asked me a personal question, this is so important to me. I understood at one point that then it's so important that so I thought, so now I have to accept it as a kind of mission to do myself, my art, my understanding of art. And of course, I have faith in art. And I believe no artist can work without faith in art. It doesn't make sense. It's a pleasure to, it's so nice. It's so nice to be an artist because you do what you love to do. You are passionate by everything you do. And you believe that it really can have an impact. So, I'm completely agree that the word faith, that's also why it was my last, because sometimes also I think there are faithless, even in the art world, there are faithless people. They're just faithless. They don't believe anymore in it. I don't know why they should perhaps better do something else. So that's why the word faithless is important.
Any final questions? Okay, last one.
Sorry to disappoint you. This is not a question. This is just to follow up on tonight's lecture. I would mention that you talk about Guillaume Desanges, a French curator, and if I'm right, that you invited to attend the Bijlmer Spinoza-Festival, and he will deliver a lecture at the TPW Gallery on Ossington on June the 9th. And I'm not the art dealer, but just to follow up on this meeting. Thank you.
But he is French.